Okay, so we're back again, and just kind of wanted to go through a few practice problems, right? So we'll start with, this is number 3.2, and this is on page 99 if you have the 4th edition. And so 3.2 is asking us a couple different things, right? It's asking us the relationship between sales and advertising, and it wants us, so we have, whoops, didn't mean to zoom. We have, what do we have here? So we have sales receipts. And we also have, or I guess, money on advertising. So it's asking us, right? So which one is the explanatory, right? So these are the two variables that we have, right? And it also wants us to know whether or not these are quantitative or categorical, right? So you guys should already be familiar with that if you've taken your notes and read through it. So what do we know about these? So there's no categories related here, right? So these are both quantitative because when we think about sales, right, that's going to be a continuous variable. It adds up all the time, and the money we spend on that is also continuous, but there's no like category for spending, right? Now, and there maybe if we could construct one, we could do that, but there's really not. Same with sales receipts, and there's not anything else. And then it wants us to identify the response variable and the explanatory variable, right? So what do you guys think on this one, right? So on this one, right, we're going to say the response variable in this case is what? It's going to be sales, right? And which means for this, the explanatory is going to be money on advertising. That's usually because we're trying to figure out, in this case, right, did money on advertising predict more sales? Because we're usually not asking if our advertising or if our sales led to more advertising, right? So that's usually not the way it works, although, I mean, I guess in some cases it is, but for this particular question, that's what we're asking here. All right, so let's move on again. We'll move to a table question. So let's do number 3.3, also on page 99. So 3.3, 99 is looking at, is there a relationship between income and happiness, right? So let's recreate that table, right? So we have income, and we have, what kind of categories you have? We have AA for above average, we have A for average, and then BA for below average. And then if we think about, we also have our happiness, right? And so how do we define that, right? So we'll go back to our color here, and we'll say happiness is up here. This is just to keep things straight. And then we have people who are not happy, pretty happy, very happy, and we'll put total and right here, and then a total at the bottom. So draw this out, and let's start filling this in. So this is again the same information that's already in that table, right? So according to this one, we have 21 people are here, we have 96, we have 143 in this category. We have 213, 506, 347. We have 126, 248, and 114. And then if we go back, we're gonna make our totals here just to make a distinction here about what's happening. We'll continue to fill this in. And there are 260 here, 1,066. We have 488, is that right? Yep. And there are 360 here, 850, and 604 for a total of 1,814 people, right? So now that we've created this table, right, we can see some gobbledygook. We see that there are some numbers here, right, but it asks us to figure out a few things, right? So the first thing here is like, what's going to be, if we look at problem A, what's the response variable and what's the explanatory variable, right? So if we look at that, so we think, what do you guys think? What's the response going to be? In this case, right, the response in this is going to be, so what we're trying to predict is going to be what? That's going to be happiness. And that's going to be explained by, put the E here, this is going to be explained by one's level of income, right? Because, so does more money equal more happiness, right? So that's the first part. So if we go back to B, it wants us to look at the conditional proportions on happiness at each level of income, interpret and summarize the association between these variables, right? So we're going to have a little bit of math here. So we know we want proportions, and we'll create these kinds of fractions, right? And we know how to do that, right? We've been doing this for years. You guys are capable of doing that. And so how are we going to do this, right? So if we're constructing the, looking at conditional portions on happiness at each level of income, we're going to move across, right? So we're going to look at 21 divided by 360, 213 divided by 360, 126 divided by 360, right? And then we'll do the same thing for here, 96 divided by 850, 506 divided by 850, 248 divided by 850, and then same here, 143, 347, 114, all those divided by 604, right? Because we're looking at across here, right? So what these totals are. So let's take a look. And if we look at this again, what might be fine? We go back to our table. And so if we converted all of these, I guess maybe we can do that. So we'll use a different color in here, right? So I'll save you the math because I already have access to this, right? So we'll say out of all this, right, 0.06. Remember, we're dividing 21 by 360. And this is 0.59. And this is 0.35. This is 0.11. I guess we can go down as well. It's 0.24. Again, so this is 143 divided by 604. This is 96 divided by 850. This is 0.60. This is going to be 0.57. So this is again 506 divided by 850, 347 divided by 604, 248. This is 0.29. And this is going to be 0.19. So what kind of information that we find here, right? So we end up finding a few things, right? So very happy people have above average income, right? And so because nearly 35% of people with above average income report being like very happy, right? Which is really interesting, right? So it seems like those with below average income, right, are not very happy, right? It's only like 20%. So it's almost 2 times, right, as likely to be higher here if you have above average income to report being happy relative to people who this percentage shows is not so much. So people who are not too happy, right, we'll say, and they have below average income are 24%. So like right here. Compared to people who have average income is 11% versus people who have above average income are not too happy. So turns out it seems like we might conclude that there is a relationship between money and happiness. So, interesting little finding. And then if we look at number C, and it's asking us the proportion of people who reported being very happy. So the way this is a marginal proportion, right? So we look at here, so we see that there's 488 divided by 1814, right? We come up with that there are 27 or 27% of all people are very happy. So that's how we solve those first two problems. Hope that was helpful. You feel free to practice the other questions in this chapter and then to prepare as well for the practice questions in the module.